Alright guys, next we got the iPhone 12 versus the iPhone 16. I think a lot of iPhone 12 users are thinking about upgrading. It's a very interesting phone because I don't think this phone is too old, but it's definitely, it's not in the newer kind of iPhone territory. I guess I would say like newer would be like 13, 14, 15. But yeah, so let's go ahead and check this one out. And we can look at the hardware here. We can see again, the cameras are bigger. Here they're in the same layout now as well too, so you can see Apple's been getting a lot of criticism about flip-flopping the design basically. But yeah, I do think the iPhone 12, it still looks great. I think it still looks like a modern phone. I don't think it really looks old at all. It's got those really sharp, or basically kind of like that boxy design here. It feels, yeah, it definitely feels a little bit sharper in the hand for sure. Now, just like with the previous older iPhones here, the biggest hardware differences that you'll notice here is Apple's new camera button, and it's really supposed to be a AI button as well too. But you can see you can mess with the camera controls, you can zoom. You guys already know how I feel at this point. I don't like the placement of it. I think if you're really into cameras, then you might, find this useful, but it's just really awkward to reach if you are filming video like this, vertical video. Also, another thing that you will really like is that you do have an action button, or I like to call it the universal button. You can basically just put any application there that you want. So you can just press this and you can bring up YouTube or whatever. So it replaces the mute switch over here. Besides that, everything else is pretty similar. IP68 dust and water resistant. This is a glossy back, so it does kind of pick up fingerprints on this model. And this is a matte finish, so you don't really see fingerprints at all. The biggest hardware thing that I've been dealing with this week is this phone, it rocks a lot. So if you like somebody who types on a table, it will kind of like wobble quite a bit. All right, let's talk about the displays here. So there's not a ton going on here. The iPhone 12 already had a pretty good display. So you do have a 6.1 inch display on the 12. It's XDR OLED, 1200 nits peak brightness, 1170 by 2532, and 460 for the PPI. Beautiful panel, great colors. The biggest thing that's really standing out here is the notch versus the dynamic island. And then for the iPhone 16, it's a 6.1 inch display. Again, the XDR OLED display, but this one has a brighter display at 2000 nits peak brightness. It's also a 1179 by 2556 resolution, and again 460 for the PPI. There is not, like I said, the displays look identical quality wise. It really comes down to outdoor max brightness. The 16 is going to be definitely brighter outdoors, so if you're in, direct sunlight at the beach or something like that, then you'll really appreciate the display. If you're not really like outdoors like that, it won't really matter. But yeah, so the displays look great on both of these phones, guys. I wouldn't necessarily say this is a major upgrade because that's really the only two things here. What would have made this an excellent upgrade is actually some type of 90 hertz or 120 frames. We'll probably see it next generation. I'll be shocked if Apple releases a phone in 2025. I mean, I'm already kind of like shocked that this phone still doesn't have 90 frames or something, but they gotta sell the Pro models, guys. That's the only thing I can think of. But the display on the 12 is fine, so it's kind of comes down to how much you like the dynamic island thing, really. Alright guys, let's talk about the overall chips on here. So both phones are running iOS 18. The iPhone 16 is supposed to have the Apple Intelligence coming in fall, so it could be, sometime next month. But for right now, we're just going to focus on the speed and everything like that. So let's talk about the iPhone 12. Apple A14 chip, 64 gigs of internal storage, which I think is a little bit low for 2024. And you also do have 4 gigs of RAM. The new iPhone 16, it does have the Apple A18 chip. You also have 128 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM. So you guys can see the Geekbench score here. It's a much higher score. Now that doesn't always necessarily translate into the phone being overall smoother. The iPhone 12 is pretty smooth by itself. As far as animations and app loading times, it's not that much faster. And I think the animations are still pretty smooth, as you guys can see on the 12 as well. So I think people get they get hyped about the chipset, but most people, if you're not doing like serious gaming, you really won't notice too much of a difference here. As far as gaming, so this is my opinion with the gaming. I actually would skip the iPhone 16, guys, because of its 90 hertz or lack of 90 hertz or 120 hertz display. If you're a competitive gamer, you really aren't getting too much of a difference with the iPhone 16. It does a much better job with cooling, and obviously newer or more intensive games like Genshin and stuff like that, it's going to run better without heating up, and your frames will be more consistent. But a lot of people play shooting games and stuff like that, and I would get like an iPhone 15 Pro, 14 Pro, even a 13 Pro would still be really solid to get those competitive frame rates. The iPhone 12 plays at the exact same settings for PUBG, and it's not too bad with the heating up. You can see HDR Extreme, and for the casual gamer, it's absolutely fine. You can play Call of Duty, PUBG, whatever on here. I haven't had really an issue with gaming on this phone. So like I said, not a big upgrade if you're a casual gamer. Competitive gamer, I would skip the 16 altogether. Like I said, I would just pay the extra money, get the Pro, or if you want to save money, look for those older Pro models. Let's check out these speakers. We got them on max volume. We'll start with the 12. So the 12 actually sounds pretty good, but basically they sound the same. It's just the 16 is much louder. The bass is hitting harder, and it's just the overall sound is louder. Yes, I think the iPhone 16 actually has a really pretty good speaker improvement here. About the camera, so we do have a 48 megapixel standard on the 16 with a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It can shoot in 4K 60, and then we also have a 12 megapixel selfie on here that also can shoot in 4K 60. Now the iPhone 12, it has a dual camera, 12 megapixel standard and 12 megapixel ultra wide. It can also shoot in 4K 60 with a 12 megapixel selfie camera. Again, can shoot in 4K 60. You will notice that you do have a macro mode on the iPhone 16 now, so you can get those really close-up shots. And you are going to be missing the cinematic mode on the iPhone 12 as well. So check out these side-by-side stills and let me know what you guys think of the image quality. Talk about the battery life experience on here. The battery life is actually much better. The standby time is so much better. I've been saying this a lot in my videos. And let's check the battery health of the 12 here. See what we got going on. 88%, actually not bad. The standby time is just not that great on the 12. The battery life is decent on here. It's not like anything crazy, but you will notice much better battery life on the iPhone 16. It has a bigger battery, and again, it just has a more efficient chipset as well on here too. And yeah, you do get the MagSafe capability on both of these phones as well. And of course, they do standard wireless charging. But yeah, I do think this is a good battery upgrade. It just does much better. I don't really worry about having to charge this phone. Like I think since I fully charged it, I haven't really had to charge. You can see it's low now, but the battery life is pretty good. So I think it's a solid battery upgrade over the 12 for sure. So that is pretty much it, guys. I want you guys to let me know, what do you guys think of this upgrade? Are you going to, trade your iPhone 12 in, do the upgrade? Was it enough? Are the cameras enough? Also, it kind of sucks that this AI stuff is not out, because the phone was pretty much marketed for AI. So I think that might play a big part in the upgrading as well too. So what do you guys think?